enough information to say, oh, I might be able to believe her. Okay? So I am Peter. I am the state neurodiversity trainer. I also am the ES3 state coordinator. I've got two main pieces to my job. One, training across the state on, we're going to go real quick with autism and ASD. Okay? But it's kind of all the barriers that kind of come with that, and some of the differences and how we work through that and support. And then the other is helping grant LEA sites work through funding to increase their support with kids on EBD and autism and how they function within school and getting more inclusive and finding ways to support in a more positive way. All right, so two people. What do you want to know from me? Instead of a paragraph long of all my do's and don'ts. Anything?
What are you passionate about?
I'm passionate about? Peacocks. I really like peacocks, and it drives a lot of when I do. I very much connect to the special interest piece of things. But you know what? I have to say, supporting kids is one of my passions. I knew right off the bat, I just wanted to be a high school history teacher, and then realized I'd never get a job doing that. So I switched what I was doing in undergrad and went and got my master's, so that I could focus in on working with kids on the spectrum and finding that brain piece, because our brain can do so many different things and lots of wonderful things and some things that, hey man, that's kind of tough. So I would say peacocks and brains. Okay, seems like a combination.
Describe briefly the coolest IEP you ever worked on.
The coolest. All right.
This is a great. I love this group.
Can it be the kid that I love the most?
Yeah.
You're not supposed to say that, but I do have a favorite. He was the most interactive, epilalic, that's where his verbal form was. I mean, his personality was through the roof. He was the most connected kid without having all the skills to connect. And finding a way to put supports in place so that he could interact with others in a way that matches where he was at versus trying to force him into what they were doing was probably one of the coolest IEPs. I said that also took me forever to find the language to say, I'm going to put you in this place, and then people are going to adjust to you so that we can get where your communication is, but everybody can see who you are. So that was probably one of the coolest IEPs I've ever done. And I got to do his like 3 or 4 years in a row, so Answer your question? All right. So today we're here to talk about CCR IEPs, but through the autism lens. And if you want like a super, what is a CCR IEP? I highly recommend you go to one of the trainings that's happening across the state. They are happening a lot. I think the WISPY calendar actually has a couple on them right now.
And what's WISPY?
Wisconsin State Throw me under the bus.
No problem.
I do acronyms. I do not full length at all. No, so I will get better with acronyms. I just started doing this in February, so I know what all the acronyms connect to. Not all of them, a lot of them. But tell me what they are. We had a big conversation about one of them the other day. We were like Googling, trying to figure out what all the words were.
Right.
I work through CISA, and I barely get out what CISA is, so.
Then I won't ask
it's
you.
a tricky one. So I highly recommend that you go, if you're like, hey, I really need to know all the technical pieces and what's changed and what's different, I'm going to give you a broad stroke through it, kind of the things I thought would be most relevant to this group. But I'm not going to tell you, this is a compliance piece, and this is not, and this needs to be this wording, and this needs not to be that wording. You need to go see a CCRI P trainer. Versus just little me. Okay? I do love questions, so feel free to interrupt me. If I don't get to you right away, it's most likely because I have to finish a thought. I will lose my thought and then not be able to get back to it. So I do sometimes have to leave it hand for a little bit to be able to make sure I don't get tripped up. But feel free to ask anytime you have something or a clarification. And I'm hoping that you can engage fully. I do a lot of activities. But none of them are forced. So there is no evil eye looking at you if you don't go and do what I ask you to do, right? You choose to engage in activity or not. It's whatever style works for you if you just want to listen from afar. But I will try to get us engaged in some way other than just sit and get every 20 minutes, which reminds me, I'm gonna set my time timer, which I'm thinking most of the people in here know what a time timer is, but I'll show you. It's like a little red, and as the time elapses, it goes away. It's one of my favorite things. They have it in an app, they have it in a CD, they have it in actual form, so you can see it in lots of different ways. But your brain lasts about 10 minutes, neurological fact. Even though you're like, no, I totally can sit all day and listen. Yeah, you think you can, you really can't. Some people are really good at doing some of your brain rejuvenating by themselves, right? You find yourself moving, you find yourself doodling. But I like to make sure it's happening so that you take home as much from what I say as you can, because I'm that important. But I will do that. So, what is a CCRIEP, right? So when we think about that, CCRIEP, College and Career Ready, okay? Kind of comes from that basis. Who's heard of RDA? Results Driven Accountability, right? The federal government said, hey, you know what, we've been doing this whole cross your T's, dot your I's for a while, and it's not working, people. Like, we're not moving forward, we're not closing the gap. So we gotta change something. So now they're saying, hey, you still have to do compliance. Don't forget about your little cross the T's and dotting I's. But you also need to look at outcomes and how are our kids progressing? And what are we doing to adjust when they're not, when they're plateauing, when they're going backwards, right? And deep diving into that, asking ourselves, why is this happening and what can we do to change, okay? So CCRIP is an individual education program developed to meet the unique disability-related needs of a student, and we will talk about disability-related needs today, because that is a phrase that seems to be tripping people up. They're like, I don't get it, and I don't know why we have this now. And help ensure that students graduate ready for further education, work, or living, right? College and career ready. I was a big proponent to the community out there. It didn't make the name. It got the name too long. But that's our idea, right? You're in school for how long, right? Not your whole life. So how about we start doing this little thing to actually affect the life, not just get us through, what are we doing here? Here's, ABC 1, 2, 3, okay? So that's kind of the idea behind CCRIAPs. I'm going to show you a couple resources before we move on, because everybody puts the resources at the end, and then you never get to them, and boy does that stink. So the first one is the DPI CCRIAP website, right? Literally, I don't even type in anything other than DPI CCRIAP, and I either get to their old page, which links right to this page, or I get right to this page. So it's super easy to Google, but it's got a wealth of stuff. Some of the stuff I'm going to show you today and actually walk through it. But if you're like, gosh, I really want to know more, but I don't have time to go one of those day trainings, spend some time in this. It's really well done. There was a lot of people that really put a lot of effort into it, and I highly recommend this website especially. And then here's my plug to help you out with gathering all the stuff that's coming through through the state. So this website, the really quick URL to get to it is tinyurl. Right, has everybody at a tinyurl.com, right? / neurodiversity WI. So neurodiversity Wisconsin. If you need to see it.
That's not in our handout, right?
It's the very last page of your handout.
Oh.
It'll be real big. So if you got a handout near you and you're on a computer and you're like, I didn't catch what she just said, check out the last page of somebody with a handout, and it's on the back. Okay? So on this website, if you go to training, all the trainings that I'll be doing across the state will have all the materials that I do for that training sitting there in that website. So like today is Autism for the CCRIEP. If you click on that, what you're going to get is all the videos that I'm using, all the handouts that we had, so the PowerPoint, the 2 handouts that, this is also on the DPI website because I stole it from there. And this is something I created through a couple resources. But everything you got that you'll see today, the websites that I go to, the fidgets, where I bought the fidgets, okay, all the way down to that. So, and if anything is missing and you find it, call it out and I'll make sure I put it on there. Yeah.
Could you put it back on the tiny URL for like 5 seconds?
Yeah. Here, just flip over.
Here, if you want to look at both.
Yeah, there we go. And then you get the spelling, because I think I have some of the ones wrong. So if you're like, oh, I need some of that stuff, one place, one-stop shopping. I also, whenever people email me things, so somebody was asking about when and where the autism Urban Institute, I have their flyer up. So when I get flyers through different things, I throw them up in events as well. So a resource there, but especially for this training, you can go and get anything that I'm going to talk about, I go to, and or the things I gave you right there. So, nope. All right, clicker. So how many of you have had experience sitting through a meeting that was looking through the CCRIEP either forms or ideals? A couple? Yeah. Of those couple, how many of you felt like it was a discussion versus the reading of a document? No, one. All right, so one of the pieces we're really looking to do is having that discussion, right? We're talking about a kid, there's lots of different pieces that are involved, lots of different opinions, and lots of different views. And when you go and you read a document, we kind of lose the ability to hit all of that. So when we think about, what do I want to get done? Where do we want to go? How can I do it through the lens of what this kid needs and wants, right? It really lends to a discussion. So as you're in these IEP meetings, really push for that discussion and look for how can we make this more of a, not just reading of a legal document, but more of a, hey, are we actually discussing this and having all these point of views put into place? DPI has also come out with 5 beliefs that are going to go through the whole idea of the CCRIEP, right? So you've got your high expectations. So it's not just, I'm going to make this a little step, I'm going to say, hey, this is where we're supposed to be. This is where we're at. And this is how I'm going to get there, right? Or I'm going to get to the next step. And it's not just assuming just because we have a difference that we can't go anywhere, right? Because that's how we plateau. We have culturally responsive practices, right? Making sure that we are aware and responding and having that in our thought processes, taking out our bias and looking at things from different views. Student relationships, right? There is an I in this IEP. Let's not leave them out the door. Right? So making sure that our relationships are a big piece, but also that they are seen within the IEP, that we see that we know the kid and the kid has, or the student has, a voice within that IEP. I always like, there's a lot of people at DPI that joke about that RDA, results driven accountability, is really relationships drive accountability. So I love that thought. Like, if you really think about it, how am I going to get more and forwardness with my IEP? Yeah, I need to know the kid, right? The person I'm actually doing this for. So when you have that, that relationship really drives it. Family and community engagement, there's actually a couple more questions about that, and a lot more guidance on how to increase that within creating an IEP, which I think is great. And then collective responsibility. It's not just one person, right? It's a team. We're all here. It takes a village, right? But we're really looking at going further than that and saying, okay, yeah, we all have our individual responsibilities, but we really need to work as a functional team moving forward so that this student has the best chance they have through the systems of supports that we're giving. I really like this video, and there is a longer version than this, but it gives some perspective of educators. And then, I promise we tested this. And parents. So if you want to watch the full thing, it is linked on my website, but also.
I think IEPs were always thoughtful to document. We're always supposed to believe that kids, all kids, can be successful.
Let me try it outside the. I don't know why, if maybe in present mode or presentation.
It isn't really new thinking, I guess. I think IEPs were always supposed to be thoughtful, intentional documents. We're always
I don't know.
supposed to
I don't know
believe
what changed.
that all kids can be successful in school, whether that's academically, socially, or emotionally. What I like about
Hold on. Let's see if I can get it from.
dedication to creating a
I don't know. We're good. So if you're super interested in that, remember, on the website, I have the videos. So I'm not gonna sit and,
You want to try to?
oops,
Just give it a shot.
oh, yeah.
It's gonna like that.
Now there's
No,
no
nothing
sound.
sound at all.
All right, so like I said, if you're
Okay.
super into videos, on the break, I'm gonna check it because I'd really like the,
I
if you go onto the website or you go into the DPI website on it, you will find this lovely video of educators and parents talking about their experience through the CCR and how that all is going down. All right, so we're gonna move on.
know.
So one of the big pieces that I thought was super relevant to us here today is the fact that DPI is really saying, hey, we really need to focus on family engagement, right? That's one of our 5 beliefs. It's something that we need to make sure is happening and that we're bringing within not only our conversations, but the actual IEP. So what's our goal? Is to getting to know and having those relationships to make sure that we are thinking about that achievement gap and that we're all looking at the achievement gap and working on it. Making sure that we're all on the kind of same page of what we're talking about, whether that's just vocab or the terms we're using, or the ideas of where we're going. The clear expectations and also that contributions are felt among all team members. And then there's active listening. When we talk about teams, it's not just about one person driving, but people working in collaboration. And that families, and you guys know this best, right? Families are not just a huge part of that, but like an essential part. Because here, we at school have them till 21 or 18 or wherever in between, and then we're off the line, right? And your family set is what's going to make you succeed or not. So it can't be overlooked. All right, so let's look into this whole CCR IEP. There's about a 5-step process to do an IEP in a way that will follow what DPI is really looking for. And your first step in that 5-step process is understanding. Okay? So when we talk about understanding, it's about knowing where our present levels are, kind of norming what we're all talking about within the information we're going to go over in the IEP. It's about that background knowledge. What do I know? Know not only about where the expectation is, right? So if you're thinking about a reading skill, where somebody at that age is expected to be within that skill set, or if you're talking about a social emotional skill or competency, right? Where typically students are within that social and emotional competency, which how many of you have seen the new social emotional learning resource on the DPI website? Jess, will you write down to add that to the resources? It just came out like, what, a week ago? It's wonderful. It actually has a age range of what those competency levels are. They're not standards. It's not like at 3rd grade you have to be able to do this and this and this to be socially competent, right? But they're age ranges, and it gives you kind of a set of ways to look like, okay, what is the expected resilience level for a person of this age? Right? A 3-year-old's resilience level is going to be very different than an 11th grader, hopefully, right? So when we think about that, that's what the universal, or the understand step is all about. Kind of where we're at, what skills do we got going, what are our strengths, what are our interests, all that information. It's not just, hey, he has this reading level, right? Sometimes we get bogged down in numbers here, right? Especially, are there any school sites in here? Oh, good, I can pick them up, right? So when they come in, they're like, number, and you're like, fantastic. I don't care. I have no idea what that number means to me, right? And that's not just on the family. That is like, so there's a special, I'm sitting there as a special educator going, great, 34% of what? I mean, give me more, right? So it's not just about numbers. It's about understanding where that kid's at so we can meet them where they're at, okay? And you see that written out a lot in a little big bulk of it in the, let's say the plop, the plef right here. In the linking form, they'll say it's the whole thing. Okay? But your IEP really should have information about where our achievement levels are, not just in academics. You don't need to just know what you're doing in reading and writing. I need to know what your strengths are. I need to know where you are functionally, right? Socially, emotionally, and all those different pieces. So we can't skip over that. And your data really should show how a child accesses and engages, right? A lot of times we sit in that progress, right? Because IEP is all about access, engagement, and progress. A lot of times we sit in that progress. You went from this reading level to this reading level. You learn this math skill to this math skill. But the other pieces are access, engagement, and a lot of times we don't think about that. And those are the pieces that often get us more inclusive. Those are the pieces we use to be able to use our academic skills outside of work, right? Or outside of school. Because academics get you a job, but your social competencies keep your job, right? So you gotta have a couple pieces to be able to move forward. And access and engagement gets some of that there. Yeah, James.
I just wanted to say, to complement what you said, in my travels as a self-advocate, that the inability to have instinctive social competency has been resulting in lots of people being denied jobs, even with academic qualifications.
Yes, and when you think about it, like even if in a non-socially demanding job, there are still social competencies you need to be able to support keeping it. Yeah.
And I know an interesting thing where someone does not have a lot of competencies, mental competencies, but he has a lot of social competencies, and no one would be able to fire that person ever.
Yeah.
Because he is so connected with
Everything going on, right? So your skill-based level, you need kind of both. So that's why in the IEP now you'll see, well, it's always there, because little known fact, no laws changed, right? We were kind of supposed to be doing all these practices to begin with. Wasn't quite happening, and that's not just Wisconsin, we're talking everywhere. So now they're like, hey guys, you're gonna have to put it in there, and we're gonna start checking it too. So like, law hasn't changed, but best practices have become a part of what is required now, right? Because the DPI forms aren't required, they're just highly suggested, right? Highly suggested. So it's really nice the way they laid it out, because you don't miss anything. It forces you to have the discussion. And they even have some really good supportive discussion tools, which we'll see at the end, to help you through that. A lot of things in this understanding, or the understanding level that gets skipped, are the student's voice, right? When we think about the strength, oh yeah, sorry.
It's good. I just have a question.
Yeah.
So I get this, but I guess I don't understand how to say this gracefully, but why, and maybe it's being done, but my son has a great case manager at East High, so I can't say her, but he had one, my older son had one years ago that wasn't the best, but
Yeah.
I've had great success at East High, so I have nothing negative to say there. But sometimes I feel like it's the case managers that don't, I don't know how to say this. Why aren't we doing this for the case managers? Because I feel like sometimes they're the ones, I feel like sometimes that are beyond the point of overworked that they're not, it's just, unfortunately, we have to get it done for the IEPs, and so then the parents sometimes don't understand it because going into this, I have a 20-year-old son that had autism, so I didn't understand it. Now I understand these very well. So the case managers just have to get them done, and I'm not blaming them, but then this part, the understanding, this stuff doesn't get
So historically,
and the case managers, I mean, my son has a great one, so she takes the time, she's awesome.
she understands the best practice view.
She understands it, she is so good,
Yeah.
and I wish everybody at East could have her, but then she would never.
Yeah, then she wouldn't be as good as she is.
Right, so, but I just wish this training could be done for them. I
So it's
mean,
really nice.
maybe it is.
So
but-
historically, everybody was just so worried about compliance
Right.
that this piece was literally, if they were doing it, it was numbers on rating math and language, right? And that's all you got. With the new CCRIP process, now we're only a couple years into it, right? Everybody's at different places and how they're understanding it, what they've trained with, how they brought training to their districts. What I really like about what DPI has done is they've taken that out of the equation. If you really want to know, you can go to their website and there's modules on, there's like a 2-hour thing just on understand that goes through kind of what we're talking about here and the definition and how to do it, what it looks like, what it sounds like. And there's one for every step. So if you wanted to train yourself, you could do that. if you were a parent who was like, okay, I know there's this understand piece, if your district's not giving it to you, here's a resource to go get it done yourself. Because you've got the knowledge, you just need to put it into a framework that everybody's moving forward to. I think what's going to help is once it's part of their check, their PCSA, when they get checked by DPI, I think that'll help bring forward more of, oh gosh, we gotta get this done. But I'd say across the state, everybody's at a different point. But what I like is that there's not just the in-person trainings that are happening, which not everybody can get out to. The website is really well done, which is not recorded, but didn't really happen a lot with it. I would say this one's done really well. So it's a good resource to be able to learn on your own and move forward. So there's no good answer to that. I think we're still in this huge transition from we're just here to cross our T's and dot our I's and get that legal document done and then I'm going to do anyway. Right, to, hey, I actually know what I need to get done and now I'll show you as well. Okay? Yeah.
You may be getting to this later in the slide, but I think from the parent's perspective, parents need or are probably seeking pretty concrete directions,
Yeah.
especially if the case manager has not gotten sufficiently up the learning curve.
Yeah.
And the Madison district has an issue with not properly licensed special education.
Yeah, that's across the state, that's what it's
Well, in Madison is worse.
Yeah.
But the point I was going to make is that I don't know if you're going to be showing the new linking form, like the one that just came out.
Yeah, like a couple weeks ago.
Right.
Yep.
That really is, first of all, it's the document that hopefully will actually be at the IEP.
Yeah, which is not guaranteed, yeah.
And the update that's been done is very helpful because it actually has an explanation.
Yeah, the wording is clear.
The wording is clear so that even if the case manager is someone who hasn't gone through the professional development or been trained,
They can read the actual document.
They can read it. This
Yeah.
actually is supposed to help the team do this. And that I found to be probably the most practical resource for the family and the team as they're sitting in the IEP meeting if they're wanting to be methodical and to do it right.
Yeah, so within that, the website that I showed you for DPI, right? There is, if you need a quick reference to what you should start seeing and not seeing, they have these wonderful step checks that, let's see if I can find it quick, on each step. So let's say they don't have the linking form, you could still go, because not every district's going to have the new linking form. And especially the amount of time it takes to update their electronic system that they do our IEPs in, that's not totally controlled by them either. So they might get the linking form today, and it might be 6 months before that new linking form is actually in their system to be seen in actual IEPs in front of kids, right? So, but that doesn't mean they can't have all the information in whatever form they use. So what I like about these step checks is it gives you kind of a quick, it's just one page, right? A quick like, hey, did we get all these pieces? What pieces am I looking for? Did I get all the pieces in it? This part I really like. What I should be looking for, what shouldn't be there, right? And then some of the thorough things that we kind of already talked about. Does that kind of clarify it? Like, I can't fix the fact that our system is just so slow to turn over. So
if you could show a screenshot of just the first page of the linking form, I think.
well, I do have a screenshot of the linkage of the effects to the disability-related need to the goal later on. So I don't, because I'm not here to train about the forms. You can go to the day training or spend your time in there. I wanted to bring what could I be thinking of that should be in the forms, the content versus the thing. So we'll get to it, but not specifically with the actual form. Okay? I know you're sad about that, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm just sorry.
No.
Where's the packet that you wrote on?
On the DPI website. Jess, will you write down? I will link
No,
that.
this packet that you're using,
The
that we're using today.
handout?
Yeah, your handout.
Oh, you want a,
I like the handout.
yes. Did I put them down? Where did you put the extras?
You don't have any extra?
No, there were 4 extras and I don't know where. No.
Does anybody see the pile of?
Oh.
I think I think they're on. Oh, yeah.
It's not there.
Otherwise I'm not.
Okay. Yeah, because I did half electronic, half paper. But, okay. Yeah, Nancy.
This may be outside the scope of this presentation, but I've talked to 2 different families in the last couple of months who have very big struggles with the IEP because the academic staff did not believe that the behaviors were actually caused by the
Yeah.
disability.
The lens change is a tough one for some educators, yeah.
Because in both cases, the kid was so high functioning that they thought they were being disobedient on purpose.
Yeah, that manipulative piece.
And they were not,
Oh, yeah.
you know, it's Asperger's very often looks
Yeah, it's like definition of this social skill that they're
Right.
struggling with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And nothing that they could do, in fact, I was just talking to one of them yesterday, and they were from a different state, they were not from Wisconsin,
Yeah.
but they said that their 8-year-old, they called the cops on the 8-year-old because the 8-year-old bit the teacher trying
Yeah.
to pull them
Yeah.
physically out from the, I mean.
Yeah, just tragic.
Just terrible stuff.
Misunderstanding.
What do you do when you have a situation where they can't even get to a reasonable IEP because they don't understand the basics of the disability? What do you do?
And the CCRIP forms aren't going to cure all of these issues. But what I like about the step 2, the next step, is that it makes you ask why. So, you know, like, oh, he bit him, but why? Well, because he just wanted to, he didn't want to do it. Why didn't he want to do it? Right, so it leads to a conversation about taking that deep dive, okay? And that's what the root cause analysis is all about in the next step. So if you're still kind of like, wait, you didn't answer what I was kind of saying, after the next step, let's come back to it, okay? All right, yeah, James.
I'm reminded of, just like you mentioned, Nancy, about, you know, that idea in which a lot of people with autism are mistaken as being spoiled, and what's sad is that, you know, it's very easy, a lot of the behaviors we see in autism are sadly mistaken as that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a teenager watching an old classic movie called Caddyshack. I remember watching Caddyshack at one time. And what kind of struck me was that in that country club, there were a lot of characters who behaved very much autistic, even though they were just stuck-up rich people.
Yep.
And what amazed me was how the behaviors of these stuck-up rich people mirrored those of behavior issues and autism, which helped me understand just how much that confusion started.
Yeah, and when you think about it, all autistic behavior is human behavior, right? Just in combinations and severity levels. So you're going to see it in pieces all over the place. You know, like that's why I had a principal once go, you know what? If you had a checklist and you could label everything that could be put you on the spectrum, and then the number 50 would be it. He's like, I'm at 49, right? Of all the different things, because we all have it's your brain. Our brains think in different ways. We're all different. There's neurodiversity everywhere. It's when the combination gets to a point that we've got barriers that we need to be thinking about how to support that we give a label. Because labels are just labels. And it's the thing we do to categorize things, right? We can label up and down the wall, but when we really think about, okay, let's think about the skill. That's where our meat lies. That's where that makes us. That's the I in IEP, right? And I think that really happens in step 2. So if you pull out your handout, the colored one, that's all the steps. Right, so blue, green, 3 versions of green. Okay. This is where we're going to work in between to kind of step through things. And we're going to move around to kind of discuss things out with each other. Or at your tables, depending on how comfortable you are moving around. So the first step, oh, do you need some? There's some here. There's plenty of those here. So step 1, right? If you see the side that has all the writing, and then the side that's blank is for you to write notes. Either go through this activity and make it so that you can work through your child or a child that you're helping with. Or you can write notes that help you better explain it out to other people around you, whatever works. But there's a nice explanation on one side, and then the columns on the other side for you to take notes. So that first step, right, is the understanding. So what I want you to do is I want you to just take a minute, and I want you to put a skill. No, I don't want you to do this yet. I'm going to give you some skills to think about, but we haven't moved. That's why I'm trying to force an activity. So my thing went off. And so what I want you to do is, if you're willing to stand up, Turn into a partner. Great, because I'm gonna reset your brain. We're gonna read out some of the super tough anxiety too. So remember to breathe, because we're talking about students' lives, and that can get really epic. So what I want you to do is, what you're gonna do is you're gonna move your fingers like this, okay? But you're gonna do it by numbers, or by twos, and you're gonna do it across with a partner. So if I say, ready, here, I'll show you a visual, don't worry, I model. So if I say 2, you would say 4, 6, 8, 10,
12,
14,
16.
right? And you're gonna move your fingers as you talk. You know, like so. You can do it any way you want, right? Just the fact you listen to my explanation and sit up is really what I needed. But for those who really like to do it, we're gonna move. All right, so ready? Count by 2s, move your fingers as you go, switch, alternating, talk. What we're going to do next is on your second handout, which was some of the skills, right? I wanted to provide some language. So it's that second, it's a white handout. Did everybody get it? Yep. So it looks like this has got the boxes on one side, and it has the circle of the social emotional competencies on the other side. Okay? A lot of times we get wrapped up in not having the language to describe the whys, right? So he bit somebody, right? And you're trying to go, but it's because, and you're lacking that like explanation to say, I've got a skill piece I really want to talk about here, right? Or I've got an access piece that I really want to talk about here. It's not about him not being able to do it. It's about the situation and environment we put him in to be able to get it done, okay? So we got kind of two avenues. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go through each of the areas on your sheet. Actually, that's each of the criteria areas. There might be a little bit more on your sheet than what's up here. Of the actual Wisconsin autism criteria, because I have to think linear like that, so that's how I set it up, but obviously you don't have to. But the first one is thinking about social cognition, right? So that ability to know when people have thoughts, have working time to be able to react in a situation and adjusting to that situation as well, right? Using your social skills and your communication skills, okay? All in time. And there's a lot of skills that kind of come along with that, right? Whether it's the very base, joint attention, right? I get that I have a social partner to be interacting with, and that my communication goes in that direction, and that I maintain attention and things like that. All the way up to social play, right? I'm pretending to be a doctor inside this station in school. It doesn't make me a doctor, but I can pretend, and I have things like that. And then my friend switches, and they run over there to the kitchen. Oh, now I'm a cook. Right? Being able to adjust in those kind of situations. Understanding imitation, when you use it, when you don't. Right? How many of us have seen a kid or a student along the years who will go and never uses anybody around them to figure out what they're supposed to be doing? Right? Everybody either heard or encountered. How many of us have done that? How many of you turned to somebody in high school and looked to see what page they were on? Right? Imitation has a lot of implications, and some of our kids will struggle with it. Okay? So, social cognition. So, what kind of data do we need to? It's that step one, that understand. What kind of data would you expect to see in an IEP, or want to see, or suggest to see? Right? What do you want tracked, either in your own situation or in a student you've helped, that you would like to see within maybe some of those skill sets? If not more, other skill sets, if you have them. But data that you'd like to see presented in that piece of finding the understand. Okay, we'll do 3. What do you guys want to see? Yeah, James.
One of the things that I've often experienced growing up is that social cognition often can be learned best when there is no burden of presumed social competency to the point where people are unwilling to teach the skills for social cognition.
Yeah.
I learned this very much so when I was in high school, and after a series of bullying incidents. I was
Yeah.
taken in by a social group that was comprised of my female peers who were all being denied special ed services because they were female. And they formed a group together. Well, what they did was they said, we like you, but because we don't expect you, since you're not female, to know, have the social competence to fit in with us, we're going to teach you how to fit in with us.
Yeah.
And for the next month, we had these secret meetings where they taught me every social skill I needed, which enabled me to develop those cognitive skills because the expectation of competency wasn't there.
Yep.
So they sat me down and taught me every social skill I needed to fit in with them.
Yeah, so I love that, and James, I often quote you for that, because James, actually at the COP meeting like 5 years ago, said to me and Barb Hill, everybody presumes competence for, or talks about presumed competence for a child with who's before words, a nonverbal child, right? That you can't say that they're not intelligent just because they do not have words, and they don't flip it. And they don't say, hey, don't presume all the social need is there and all the competencies are there just because I can talk and I'm hyperverbal and I'm social, right? So I want to be, and I'm actually making all this effort and I'm failing because I'm truly not getting it. How wonderful you had a group that helped you through that, right? And gave you the support that should have been probably thought about in your IEP. So what I like about James's first thing with this, understand, is does social cognition actually show up in my IEP? Right? And I'm going to tell you, a lot of times it doesn't, which doesn't make sense to me, because we're talking about a child on the spectrum, and the literal definition, to give them that label that we like to use, talks about social cognition and participation in communication. Why is that not something that we need either access or support in learning and skill in? Right? I'm not saying that every person on the spectrum is going to need explicit skill teaching and cognition, but they might need access pieces. They might need positive areas to practice where when you are interacting, there isn't that high ability of getting bullied, right? A safe place to practice, that might be where it needs to happen, right? And then maybe that's something that needs to be required by the IEP, because I'm not going to go do that math group if I can't navigate it, right? I know I need to write down this, I know all the skills in it, but I can't access that math group because holy crap, the people are just, I have no idea how that's working. Right, we're picking a math group. I had a kiddo who the gym teacher said, okay, everybody get in groups of 4. And he literally went like this. He stood near somebody that was a group of 3, nothing happened. So he went, stood next to a group of 2, nothing happened. He stood next to a group, He was going and counting 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, right? He didn't have the skill of knowing what group is his group, right? In high school, he got groups. Like I was not popular. I was, I like Star Trek, it had some socially not generalized interests. So I was not part of the popular crowd. I got along with the popular crowd, but I wasn't going to go up to them in gym and be in their group, because they're going to be like, why are you here? We have our lunch table. You're not part of our lunch table, right? Lunch table's another one. He didn't have that piece of awareness. And then he didn't have the, can I be part of your group? Right? The initiation. He knew what he needed to do. He didn't know how to enter into it. So a big barrier to do something he could do everything else within. Right? All within social cognition.
So I guess for me, I'm trying to understand this. So if he or she has been instructed to go into group of 4,
Yeah.
it appears that he did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah, he literally got it covered.
Right. So maybe leadership might want to be more clear and directed.
Yes.
For instance, in group of 4s with someone you're comfortable with versus, group of 4, because he's trying to, or she, be trying to find their place.
Which is a
give description.
great
all
example
these different places is not all.
of how we need to meet them where they're at. All right? If I'm not working on that right now, I'm going to fill it in for them. So I'm going to say, Johnny, that means you have to go to a group that's less than 4 and say, can I join your group? All right? That's how you guys are going to get a group 4. You're going to find a number that hasn't exceeded 4, and when you get there, you're going to say, can I get a group? I'm going to say it to everybody. We don't need to sing Johnny out. There are like 5 other kids that are like walking around doing whatever that need it too. So I'm going to say to everybody, not single them out, and that's going to be I'm going to meet them where it's at. But I'm not going to miss the fact that I need to teach Johnny that awareness.
That's right.
To know, what do I do when I hear things and I notice things people are getting and I'm not? What do I do? What's my next step? Because in the job world, there isn't going to be this guy saying, okay, and explaining it perfectly, unless you have a job coach and you're trying to get, you meet somebody where they're at. So we still have to give the skill. But yeah, that's a perfect example. We still need to know where they're at. But we're not just gonna say, well, I'm gonna teach that, and they're putting my idea, I'm gonna teach it.
So,
But I'm not gonna get to it, so.
the reason why I'm asking all this is because we come with these, notions that we have, the possible support to, for the skill that Johnny or Sheila may need.
Yeah.
When in fact, it has not been created yet.
Yes,
So, for instance, as the normal world, so to speak, we can be given directives just like all of us sitting here.
Yep.
And you can have a few that say, I don't even understand exactly what we supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
Right? So, some of us might raise our hand and say, I'm not really clear, I understand. And a few other people say, I'm waiting on somebody to ask that question.
Yeah, and those are all skills.
That
Skills and awareness, right? That social awareness within this piece. So if I had to put a category and label to it, what you're describing are things that we might have to explicitly teach. You know, Judy Endo talks about the hidden curriculum, right? For our lower impact, actually for everybody, right? It's not even an impact thing, right? Social awareness is huge. It's a competency thing that everybody needs. Some brains learn it naturally. It just comes through practice, and it usually heavily practices up until like 3rd grade. Like we get so much of our social content there, and then high school you figure it out, but it hurts a lot, right? So like those things happen naturally for a lot of types of brains. When you have a brain who doesn't naturally pick that up, your brain isn't paying attention to the pieces needs to be. Okay, then you need to explicitly teach. I didn't naturally pick up calculus. Actually, I never picked up calculus. That's why I had to change out of that class in high school. I was good at math, which really made me mad, right? So there are things that, you know, people are going to struggle with, you're not. But the fact is when you struggle, we're really good to teach you things like math, reading, where to go, where not to go, how to use this, how to use it, you know, technology, we're okay, I'll teach you explicitly how to do this. But we don't do it for social cognition. And when we're asking, what data do I need for a child on the spectrum? I'm going to say, if you're not talking about it, we might be missing a mark somewhere here. Yeah, James.
One thing though, I might add too, is that teachers also have to be aware how sometimes kids do not have a social circle,
Yep.
and they aren't always able to join those groups. I remember once when a teacher was forced to eat her humble pie, when she forced me to join a group, and then the parents complained that I was stalking those individuals, and complained to the teacher, and that teacher basically realized she should not have forced me to join those groups.
Yes. And the thing is that friendship piece, right? Friendship can't be forced, right? As many of us as educators, oh, we set up a peer group and they're all good, I just made them friends. No, you did not. You put them in a group where the friends could develop. I'm not saying that peer groups are wrong, because there's lots of research, you can peer mediated groups, there's lots of ways to get the social cognition skills you need to be able to create a friend. But friends, two-way street, right? So we can set up situations to foster it. But yes, we have to be aware that for some of our kids, actually, a lot of our kids, it's not naturally happening. Right? That's why I love the anime groups, or when you find your thing. If there was a Peacock group, I'd be in it. Right? Like, Green Bay Packer seems to be one that everybody's okay with. And everybody jump into the Green Bay Packer one. But finding your groups of your people. And that's anybody. That's not an autistic thing. That's a human behavior thing. You find your people and you go. Once you're out of high school, once you're out of college, you start to narrow in it. But then it's like, okay. It's okay to go to that bar on 84th and oh, that we're not in Milwaukee. There's a bar in Milwaukee that is a board game bar, which is really fun because it lights up like bright lights. There's no mood lighting in this bar. It's just, you know, but it's the whole range. It's not just like Connect Four. It goes to all the really complicated. I didn't realize there were games that you just play to beat the game, like cooperative games. I had my eyes open to that, right? But all those people found their people and they made a bar. Like they even made it like a social thing. And I was like, that's phenomenal. That's not an autism thing, that's a human thing, right? But because more socially appropriate after school. But in school, we can still find those groups as well. Yeah. To help foster what James is
I
saying.
guess going back to, so thinking about an IP and group social skills, I mean, I've had this before where I say, he needs help joining a group in class, because you put him in groups and he doesn't know how to participate with the other kids. He doesn't know how to engage, he doesn't, or he ends up just kind of trying to do the work on his own when other people are helping each other. And like, I try to like make that a thing, but then it does, nobody really does anything to actually help him.
Yeah, and that's
teaching him skills.
going back to that
And I
collective
talk, and
responsibility.
especially once you get to like middle school, high school, when it was one teacher, it was a lot easier to, work with us. But once you have like 7, 8 teachers and you're trying to communicate with all of them, and then some kind of get it and some don't, and this is very
And finding different ways to word things, especially in IEPs, to get that communication out to more teachers and understanding. That is not an easy feat. right? I mean, it sucks because it's a struggle. It's hard. Because you can't have everybody in the same training all the time and be able to give the information. But when we start asking in the second step about the whys and those conversations, at least you have somebody there, then go, oh, we talked about that, and have that conversation with the teacher. And then if you actually make it, if it is a need or a goal or a service, like a supplementary service, now we're saying, hey, you need to be aware of this. They're legally required to be aware of that IEP and performing it. So if we find ways to make sure that things that they need to be able to participate, like you're talking about, are embedded in there, because that's part of his whole
So I
experience.
guess, what do you put though? I mean, I guess that's why I'm trying to give you very practical, like.
Yes, and let's talk about when we go to turn and talk.
Okay.
Those are the conversations I want you to have. If you don't get it from your partners, let's have a break. With me and you on the break.
Okay.
Okay? Because that's a very good point. Yeah.
This is a description of something that has now crystallized in my son's life, who's 40.
Yeah.
And we all talk about friendship as being the interaction.
Yeah, like the one big thing.
people.
Yeah.
And it turns out that with my son, who I like to describe as gloriously autistic,
Yeah.
is he does not view friendship like the rest of us do. For him, friendship is being social, would be to be in this room with his computer in a
Doing
corner,
the- yep.
doing his thing. He would love to be here, but he would not want to interact with anyone.
Yep.
And that's how he perceives social stuff.
Yep.
And so any attempt to force him to interact with people increases his stress and everything and makes things very uncomfortable.
Very tied to anxiety.
They have very high anxiety.
Yep.
So what we have learned over time is that the best thing to do is just to support him
Yeah.
in that worldview for him and say, that's fine, he's over there, he's doing his thing, he's enjoying being here, but, and you say hi to him if you want to, but if he doesn't want to engage in conversation, that's perfectly
That's where it's
fine, and to support him where he is.
Yes, meet him where he's at.
And be aware that we're not uncomfortable with the fact that he is like this, because that is what he's like.
Yep.
And as a result, he is now participating in like the local origami club,
Yeah.
where he goes and he sits in the corner and he does his own origami thing, but the people are aware that that is how he is.
Yep.
And so he is accepted there.
Yeah.
And
So he found his people.
he's with people,
Yeah.
but he was always on this trajectory, even when he was in high school.
Yeah.
By forcing him into friendship things, you kind of have to do it because nobody really knew where he was going to end up.
Yeah.
But still, it was totally frustrating for everybody. And you might want to keep in mind that if there's someone who is as gloriously autistic as my son is, that eventually you may find out that friendship, the definitions of friendship that we see are not
Very different.
necessarily the definitions of everyone.
Yes. And that is knowing the individual. That's the I in the IEP, right?
Yeah.
If you're moving forward with your step one of understanding that Ken, you don't understand that is going to be a problem because you're going to do things like force them into groups. You meet them where they're at to make them have the life they want to have,
Right.
right? Not the way we want them to have.
Right.
If they can communicate with us in a way that makes us understand their wants and needs, there. Now, if we've got somebody who we're doing some guesswork with, it is a little bit more on our side,
Right.
right? But when you've got a communicator who can get their wants and needs out, that's the INIP. That's part of this understand piece. So it's not about forcing. It's about meeting where we're at, giving the skills they need to move forward in the life that they want. Make sense? All right, so I want you to turn to a partner and get down on something. One data piece, something you know about a student or your kid that you think holds inside that social cognition area, right? So I know that, now if you have the data, right? Johnny will initiate conversation within a group of 5 in a closed session, 3 out of 5, 3 times in an hour, right, on average. That would be the data I would have, right? So if you had your data, what would it be like? What would be the thing you would know about them and understand? Maybe it is. I know that he has verbalized on multiple occasions he does not want to interact with unknown groups. Great, that's an understand piece, that's a data piece I could have. Okay? Make sense? Think about it, I give you a minute, 'cause you're all looking at me like, I don't really want to do this. So you're wrapping up, and if you want to take a note on what you talked about, you have that blue section on your handout. So go ahead and write down either what you're talking about to help you clarify, or if you actually had a data point, you're like, oh, I just checked this data, and it was 3 out of 4 times in this bill. You can put that on the paper too. Or if it's, man, I really wish my school team would take data on this. Okay, I wish I had data to put here on this. You can put that there too. All right, so we have a parent to come talk to us. We're gonna step off of IEPs for a second in my presentation and move to our parent section so that she can get to what she needs to get to after us. And then we'll take a break after that, and then we'll come back